Hello everyone, this is chapter 3, class 7 history. In chapter 2, we saw that regions like the Kaveri Delta became the center of large kingdom. Did you notice that there was no mention of a kingdom with Delhi as its capital? That was because Delhi became an important city only in the 12th century. Take a look at table 1. Delhi first became the capital of a kingdom under the Tomra Rajput, who were defeated in the middle of the 12th century by the Chauhans, also referred as the Chahmanas of Ajmer. It was under the Tomras and Chauhans that Delhi became an important commercial center. Many rich Jaina merchants lived in the city and constructed several temples. Coins minted here, called Delhi Wal, had a wide circulation. The transformation of Delhi into a capital that controlled vast areas of the subcontinent started with the foundation of Delhi Sultanate in the beginning of the 13th century. Take a look at table 1 again and identify the five dynasties that together made the Delhi Sultanate. The Delhi Sultans built many cities in the area that we now know as Delhi. Look at map 1 and locate Delhi, Kona, Sri, and Japana, the rulers of Delhi. Rajput dynasty, early 12th century, 1165. Arangapala, 1130 to 1145. Chauhanas, 1165 to 1192. Prithviraj Chauhan, 1175 to 1192. After that, early Turkish rulers, 1206 to 1290. Kutubuddin Aibak, Samshuddin Aibak, Rajia, Ghiyasuddin Balban. And here is the year. Okay. After that, Khilji dynasty, 1290 to 1320. Jalaluddin Khilji, 1290 to 1296. Alauddin Khilji, 1296 to 1200. Sorry, it's 1316. Tughlaq dynasty, 1320 to 1414. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, Muhammad Tughlaq, Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Here is the year. Ghiyasuddin, Muhammad Tughlaq, and Firoz Tughlaq. Sayyid dynasty, 1414 to 1451. Khizr Khan, 1414 to 1421. Lodi dynasty, 1451 to 1526. Bahlol Lodi, 1451 to 1489. This is Iltutmish Tomb, Alai Darwaja. Here it is. Alai Darwaja and Firoz Shah Tughlaq Tomb. Finding out about the Delhi Sultanate. Although inscriptions, coins, and architectures provide a lot of information, especially valuable are histories, Tariq, singular, Tariq, plural, written in Persian, the language of administration under the Delhi Sultans. 1, 2, 3, 4 pictures, you can see it. The authors of Tariq were learned men, secretaries, administrators, poets, and countries who both recounted events and advised rulers on governance, emphasizing the importance of the rule. The circle of justice. Fakhr-e Mudabir wrote in the 13th century, a king cannot survive without soldier, and soldier cannot live without salaries. Salaries come from the revenue collected from peasant, but peasant can pay revenue only when they are prosperous and happy. This happens when the king promotes justice and honest governance. Keep the following additional details in mind. The authors of Tariq lived in cities, mainly Delhi, and hardly ever in villages. They often wrote their histories for sultans in the hope of rich reward. These authors advised rulers on the need of preserve an ideal social order based on birthright and gender distinctions. Their ideas were not shared by everybody. In 1236, Sultan Iltutamish's daughter Rajah became sultan. The chronicler of the age, Minhaj-e-Siraj recognized that she was more able and qualified than all her brothers, but he was not comfortable at having a queen as ruler. Nor were the nobles happy at her attempts to rule independently. She was removed from the throne in 1240. What Minhaz-e-Shiraz thought about Razia. Minhaz-e-Shiraz thought that the queen rule went against the ideal social and order created by God, in which women were supposed to be subordinate to men. He therefore asked in the register of God's creations, since her account did not fall under the column of men, how did she gain from all her excellent qualities? On her inscriptions and coins, Razia mentioned that she was the daughter of Sultan Iltutmish. This was in contrast to the Queen Rudrama Devi 1262 to 1289 of the Kaktiya dynasty of Warangal, part of modern Andhra Pradesh. Rudrama Devi changed her name on her inscriptions and pretended she was a man. Another queen, Didda, ruled in Kashmir 980 to 1003. Her title is interesting. It comes from Didi, our elder sister, and obviously affectionate term given to a loved ruler by her subjects. From garrisons town to empire, the expansions of the Delhi Sultanate. You can watch the map carefully and you can find it, okay? In the early 13th century, the control of Delhi Sultanate rarely went beyond heavily fortified towns occupied by the garrisons. The Sultan seldom controlled the hinterland of the cities and were therefore dependent upon trade, tribute, or plunder or for supplies. Controlling garrisons towns in distant Bengal and Sindh from Delhi was extremely difficult. Rebellion, war, even bad weather could snap fragile communication routes. The state was also challenged by Mongol invasions from Afghanistan and by governors who rebelled at any sign of Sultan's weakness. The Sultanate barely survived these challenges. Its expansions occurred during the reigns of Ghiyasuddin Balban, Alauddin Khilji, and Muhammad Tughlaq. The first set of campaign along the internal frontier of the Sultanate aimed at consolidating the hinterlands of Garrison Town. During these campaigns, forests were cleared in the Ganga Yamuna Doab, and hunter gatherers are pastro- uh, pastoralists expelled from their habitat. These lands were given to peasants and agriculture was encouraged. New fortresses and towns were established to protect trade routes and to promote regional trade. The second expansion occurred along the external frontier of the Sultanate. Military expeditions into southern India started during the reigns of Alauddin Khilji C. Map 3 and culminated with Muhammad Tughlaq. In their campaigns, Sultanate armies captured elephants, horses, and slaves and carried away precious metals. By the end of Muhammad Tughlaq's reign, 150 years 150 years after somewhat humble beginnings, the armies of the Delhi Sultanate had marched across a large part of the subcontinent. They had defeated rival armies and seized cities. The Sultanate collected tax from the peasantry and dispensed justice in its realm. But how complete and effective was its control over such a vast territory? Look here. Kuwait al-Islam mosque and minaret built during the last decade of the 12th century. This was the congregational mosque of the first city built by the Delhi Sultans, described in the chronicles as Delhi 1 Kunha Kona, the old city. The mosque was enlarged by Iltutmish and Alauddin Khilji. The minar was built by the three sultans Kutubuddin Aibak, Iltutmish and Firoz Shah Tughlaq. This is Qutub Minar. The masjid. The mosque is called a masjid in Arabic, literally in a place where a Muslim prostrate in reverence to Allah in a congregational mosque. Masjid a Jami or Jama Masjid. Muslims read their prayers, namaz together. Member of the congregations choose the most respected learned male as their leader, Imam, for the rituals of prayer. He also delivers the sermons, kutubah, during the Friday prayer. During prayer, Muslims stand facing Mecca in India. This is the west. This is called Qibla. The Delhi Sultans built several mosques in cities all over the subcontinent. These demonstrated their claims to be protectors of Islam and Muslims. Mosques also helped to create the sense of a community of believers who shared a belief systems and code of conduct. It was necessary to reinforce this idea of a community because Muslims came from a variety of backgrounds. Motki Masjid, built in the reign of Sikandar Lodi by his minister. Figure 5th Mosque of Jamali Kamali, built in the late 1520. Compare figure 235. What similarities and differences do you note amongst the mosque? The mosque in figure 345 show an evolution in architectural tradition that culminates in Japanese mosque in Delhi. See figure 7 in chapter 5. A closer look administrations and consolidations under the Khiljis and Tughlaqs. The consolidations of a kingdom as vast as Delhi Sultanate needed reliable governors and administrators rather than appointing aristocrats and landed chieftains as governors. The early Delhi Sultans, especially Iltutmish, favored their special slaves purchased for military service, called bandgam in Persian. They were carefully trained to man some of the most important political office in the kingdom. Since they were totally dependent upon their master, the Sultan could trust and rely upon them, slaves rather than sons. The sultans were advised a slave whom one has brought up and promoted must be looked after for it. Needs a whole lifetime and good luck to find a worthy and experienced slave. Wise men have said that a worthy and experienced slave is better than a son. Can you think of any reason why a slave would be better than a son? The Khilji and Tughlaq continued to use Bandga and also raised people of humble birth who were often their clients to high political positions. They were appointed as generals and governors. However, this is also introduced an element of political instability. Slaves and clients were loyal at their masters and patrons, but not to their heads. New sultans had their own servants. As a result, the accession of a new monarch often saw conflict between the old and the new nobility. The patronage of these humble people by the Delhi sultans also shocked many elites, and the authors of Persian Tariq criticized the Delhi sultans for appointing the low and base born to high offices.